Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our annual meeting when I'll be discussing the highlights of 2021. Tonight, we'll be taking a walk through Mount Hope Cemetery. That's our theme for the evening. And one of the great accomplishments of 2021 was the birth of the Mount Hope coloring book. We've always dreamed of making a coloring book for young children, many of whom come to Mount Hope with their families on a regular basis. Thanks to the ingenuity and creativity of our resident artist, Ann McCracken, and our scriptwriter, Marcia Birkin, our dream was realized. This project took several years. Hours of discussion went into each image as we contemplated how a young child could view the glory of Mount Hope. If you have not purchased a coloring book, go to our website and get a copy for your favorite young child. One super accomplishment of the last year was our new website. The amount of information on this website is amazing. You'll find it interactive and user-friendly. We are constantly updating and adding new features. If you have any questions about anything in the Friends of Mount Hope, you can ask your question by using Contact Us on the home site webpage, and you will receive a response within 24 hours. The website is part of our communications network, which includes Constant Contact, Facebook, and the Epitaph magazine, which is published 4 times a year. You'll be receiving the spring issue in a few weeks. Overseeing the website is Christine Klein, assisted by Pat Corcoran. Pat Source writes Constant Contact and is in charge of our community outreach communications like radio, TV, newspapers, etc. And Chris Pitote is our Facebook chair. The epitaph is currently written by a transitional team following the retirement of Richard Reesum in fall 2021. The 2021 epitaphs were edited by Richard and Christopher Conway, to whom we are grateful. Pat Source is the chair of public relations, as well as our Zoom specialist tonight. A highlight of 2021 was the birth of our Holocaust project. This is a source of inspiration for all of us and will be an incredible gift to this community. The chairs of this dedicated committee will be making a presentation during this meeting. How we love cradle graves. We invite you to plant a garden. The Cradle Grave program grew by leaps and bounds in 2021, thanks to the leadership of Robbie Dreesen. Last year, over 123 volunteers planted 215 of these graves. More cradle graves were discovered last summer in various sections of the cemetery. Some of these cradle gardens were repaired by volunteers, and some more challenging gardens will need to be professionally repaired this year. On September 12th, after having worked in virtual isolation for 2 years, the volunteers met for a picnic, a get-together of gardeners who previously were just names on emails. Tours are our specialty, and we have the best guided tour program, as you can see here, a great honor for us. Our tour program returned to normal in 2021, featuring over 100 tours for this season. The tour program is led by co-chairs, Deb Coffey and Dennis Carr. That's Deb Coffey right there with her hat on, with her Abraham Lincoln hat on. In addition to theme tours, twilight tours, Sunday tours, from July through October, we conducted 2 pop-up historian tours. Each of these programs had a unique theme that connected the stops and stories together. One was called Witnesses to History, Revelations of Section L, and the second was From Beyond, Tales of Melancholy, Grief, and Tragedy. New in 2021 was a growth in private tours where families or groups of friends would schedule a special tour at their convenience. Supporting our tours and an absolute necessity is our group of receptionists led by Barbara Figueroa. Restoration is one of the two major activities of the Friends of Mount Hope. This initiative is supported by funds from membership, donations, and grants. Being a totally volunteer organization, this year, 67% of our revenue was used for cemetery restoration. 2021 was the third and final year of a project to repair all the gravestones in areas contiguous to the Susan B. Anthony gravesite. Section A, a very old part of the cemetery, was completely restored thanks to donations from 141 of our members. An adjacent section called Section B is located on a hilly island. It was completely restored, financed by a generous gift from Colleen Crowley and Jack Martin of Palm Springs, California, and Friends of Mount Hope Restoration Funds. The Civil War section was completely restored and all the stones cleaned. The two cannons were repaired and repainted. Fencing was completed along the hill adjacent to the Susan B. Anthony gravesite, and twice a month, our stone cleaning committee met to clean stones. All the work that the Friends have done for the past 3 years is maintained with Friends of Mount Hope funds. If a stone falls down after being repaired, for example, if by accident it is hit by a lawnmower, it is repaired immediately. We are serious about maintaining the areas that we have already repaired. 6 members contributed funds to our Save a Stone project to professionally repair a gravestone, which was of interest to them. This is a wonderful program and such an asset to our restoration aspirations. So if any of you see a stone that's perhaps a family stone or a stone that you just think is very interesting that needs to be repaired, let us know. We will send you an estimate and hopefully we can work to get that stone repaired. Our many landscape volunteers, led by Tom Jones, Chris Pitote, and Tony Filer, work in collaboration with the City of Rochester to work on projects which are suggested in the city's master plan. Every work during all seasons, our teams are hard at work, including winter. If you went through the cemetery and the temperature was 10 below zero, I can guarantee you would see some members of our landscape team out and about doing projects. Landscape events accounted for a total of 460 volunteer hours and 98 board member hours, for a total of 558 hours as a gift to the City of Rochester for the maintenance of the cemetery. The tree committee planted and maintained 12 trees last year, 8 of which were species new to Mount Hope. Our advocacy for trees and their maintenance, along with tours and presentations on trees, contributed to our recent prestigious award listing Mount Hope Cemetery as a Level 2 Arboretum. Our tree expert is Tom Jones, and we're indebted to Tom for being our leader in our tree plans. Friends of Mount Hope also maintained 11 garden plots and 4 planters in the cemetery. We provide funds for the annual professional treatment of 5 iconic trees that were gifts of the Ellwanger Berry Nurseries, some as old as donated in 1848. Friends of Mount Hope volunteers also maintained the Douglas and Anthony family plots. A volunteer-created website focusing on the trees in Mount Hope Cemetery expanded, and you can reach that from our homepage on our website. You can submit any questions about genealogy by contacting us on our website. You will receive a prompt reply from our genealogist, Nancy Ufendel. This is a great bargain because we do this as a free service. When you contact us and give your information on the website, Nancy will send you pages and pages of the research that she has conducted, including photographs. We're very fortunate to have a genealogist who is so committed. Now we're going to visit 3 of our get-togethers that we had in 2021 that were very special to us. First was a rededication at the original Brith Codish plot in Section O. A Victorian fence was erected at the newly restored Brith Codish site. This marked the completion of a 3-year restoration project supported by funds from the Friends of Mount Hope, Ames Amzalak, and the Farish Foundation. The rededication of this historic plot was celebrated on June 13th and featured the dedication of a tree in honor of Earl Gurrell in gratitude for his devotion and leadership on our board. And on the lower right-hand side is a photograph of Earl surrounded by the family members that attended the ceremony. At the University of Rochester plot, the steps were repaired, handrails were installed, and 2 trees were planted, one in memory of our dear friend, Emil Homerin. One of our most memorable ceremonies in 2021 was a gathering in memory of Emil, attended by his family, our Friends of Mount Hope members, and his colleagues from the University of Rochester. Special thanks to Nora Walter, Emil's wife, and his son Luke for inspiring us with memories of Emil. Our third notable ceremony, and the final ceremony of the season, featured the sons of Union veterans of the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln, Camp Number 6, leading us in the National Wreaths Across America ceremony. Mount Hope Cemetery was awarded 9 wreaths in honor of our Civil War veterans. And this was the first year that we participated in this program. Ed O'Brien, who is the leader of this group, is responsible for helping us raise money for the cleaning of the iconic stone that you see in the right-hand side. This presentation represents the tip of the iceberg of our many initiatives, all done by volunteers, all focused on improving and promoting Mount Hope Cemetery. We love researching the history of early Rochester and celebrating the lives of the many fascinating people buried in Mount Hope. As president of the Friends of Mount Hope, it is an honor and privilege to work with such a creative, hardworking board and cohort of active volunteers, people truly committed to our mission. We welcome new volunteers. Whatever your talents, you will find a place in the Friends. Check our website under volunteer opportunities and come join us. And special thanks to our members and supporters whose loyalty and generosity make our work possible. Mount Hope Cemetery is a national treasure, and it belongs to all of us.
Thank you, Pat. That was incredibly motivating to see how much work that has been accomplished in a year that was a challenge for all of us. Our next presenter will be Henry McCartney, who will present the treasurer's report. And let me pick up his report on my screen. And if you give me a minute here, we'll go to full screen. Should happen. Okay.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I guess I've been treasurer for 4 years or something and monitoring finances, but I think Pat really illustrated the benefit of what these monies are doing, or how they're helping Friends of Mount Hope keep this wonderful cemetery. Budgeting over these last couple of years during COVID has been somewhat difficult, though certainly with all the problems COVID had created, not being able to budget in the future isn't horrible, but certainly in 2020, the early budgeting had to be thrown away. And of course, we didn't have a great year in tours and other things. Last year, I said we thought we would build back, but we probably wouldn't do as well as we did in the last non-COVID year, which is 2019. That was wrong, because we did much better than we did in 2019. And I really, financially, it was a stellar year. We had high tour revenues, about 20% higher than we had in 2019. Some of that was the website and doing digital ticket sales and stuff like that. Membership support was strong, which is, in 2020, we lost our system for getting new members, but old members picked that up, or not old members, but existing members. And so our support was about the same as 2020. And the donors were significantly more than we had had. 2020 was good. 2020 was even better. We unrestricted donations were at $14,000, and we raised another $28,000 from donors that gave for like Section A or Section B or some of the other projects that Pat mentioned in the Civil War graves. We also had a donation that enabled us to publish a new book, The Tale of Two Henrys, featuring Henry Selden and Henry O'Reilly. They're both born in the cemetery. And in addition, we had significant grant support. We received over 20,000 new monies and grants for our restoration efforts, and it enabled us to complete some of our projects, and provided some money that we will be able to use in 2022. And all of this was an organization that has very low operating expenses, since we're all volunteers, and the cemetery generously provides us with office space. So we have none of those typical expenses that other nonprofit organizations have. Pat, can you go next one? We also had some unexpected revenues. Monroe County came up with a plan, and they used federal pandemic monies to help cultural institutions that had lost revenues in the previous year. So we applied and received the maximum of $20,000, offsetting the money we would have gained or earned in 2020. We also had a $25,000 donation from the Rhonda and Earl Ralph family to set up an endowment fund, and the proceeds from that endowment fund will enable us to continue the work that Earl was so interested in, and that is restoring some of the Jewish areas within the cemetery. And we had strong investment returns in 2021. Overall, we did very well, and that enabled us to do $25,000 support for the cemetery improvements. And I mentioned just a second ago that we're having strong contributions. I think people are seeing, I've had people come up and tell me, you know, the cemetery is looking great, at least in certain areas of it where we're working now. And that then leads to other people supporting us. So I think that's great. So we were able to put $25,000 into cemetery improvements. And with the unexpected revenues especially, we put $50,000 into our investment account, which is managed for us by the Rochester Area Community Foundation. This is just a quick chart of where our money came from. Contributions at 40% because it was so strong that year. Investments at 11%. As you can read that. Membership was strong, grants, and then our tour and merchandise. Now our expenses were $113,000, and I think Pat mentioned that 67% of that was cemetery improvements, 27% with education, things like publishing the epitaph, the new publication I mentioned, plus a minor amount of money for the coloring book, the website upgrade. All that I think is helping educate people about the cemetery and keeping us in front of them as we look for donations and grant support. And our general administrative support, we can't not have insurance and a few other things. We have some accounting expenses, but 6% I think is extremely low for an organization like ours. Our budget plan for 2022, the board approved a base budget of $82,000. 50,000 of that was earmarked for cemetery improvement as part of this base budget. 24,800 is for education, including a new mobile app that will feature parts of Mount Hope Cemetery that people will be able to do. That should be completed in 2022. This base budget does not include $34,600 in grants and donations that we received either in 2021 or previously. Some of those were earmarked that the projects are still underway or are still being planned. That money will come into 2022 also. And in 2022, we will increase our budget as we get additional grants and donations, such as the money that's already come in for the Holocaust monument that Pat mentioned. So I think we have done tremendous, had a tremendous year in 2021. I think we can continue to do that. And I think with our low overhead now, we will show the community that we're an organization that can really fulfill our mission and help Mount Hope Cemetery. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry.
Sure.
It's very optimistic seeing those numbers.
Yes. I think so.
As you said, we weren't particularly optimistic at the beginning of last year.
Yeah. No, we couldn't figure out what was going on, but really everybody came through for us, I think.
Well, it's now time in our program for audience participation, and it's the vote for the re-election of our trustees. You received the names of the class that is up for nomination this year. Let me read their names to you, and then we will take a vote on the computer. You'll be able to vote if you haven't already sent in your proxy. The current class includes Dennis Carr, Patricia Corcoran, Christopher Grooms, Tony Filer, Monica Gorell, and Nancy Uffendell. So I am going to launch a poll and ask for your vote in support of this class of the re-election of the class of 2022. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. We've had 46 members vote in favor of the slate. We had 94 proxies in support of the slate. So our trustees are reelected. Let us go to the next item on our agenda. And we are going to hear from co-chairs Marjorie Searle and Marcia Birkin with our Holocaust project. Ladies?
Marcia and I will be splitting this presentation. I'm Margie Searle. A few years ago, we were at the dedication of the historic Temple B'rith Kodesh lot, which you have heard about. And a gentleman approached Tony Filer, one of the Friends board members. Let's see, do I have to share my screen here? No, I don't think so. Sorry. And asked where the Holocaust survivors were buried. Tony brought that question back to the next board meeting, and it prompted an effort to begin to identify these individuals. The board has grown, the project has grown even beyond that. So far, with the efforts of Tony, Christine Klein, Nancy Uffendell, Marcia Birkin, Pat Corcoran, and me, about 85 survivors have been identified. We have been able to find 30 of their stories online, thanks to the Chai database created by the Jewish Federation. Another 8 have been researched by our committee. We have another 45 stories yet to tell, but those we have documented can be located in the Holocaust Archive on the Friends website. While we believe that Mount Hope survivor burials may be the most of any municipal cemetery in the United States, we are mindful that there are survivors buried in other local cemeteries, including Britton Road, Stone Road, Whitehaven, and Pittsford. We welcome information that will add to our stories about these individuals for the database that our fellow trustee, Nancy Uffendell, maintains so diligently. Our project has also benefited from the hard work of trustees Christine Klein and Tony Filer, among others, and the generosity of survivor families. Among the beautiful stories revealed through our research is the one belonging to Emil and Gabriela Hertz, who was referred to in their family as Yella, who emigrated to the United States in 1942. Both of them are buried in Mount Hope. Both of them wrote about their experiences, and their family generously shared their published and unpublished writings. Let me tell you a little about their history, and then Marcia will read from some of Emil's beautiful letters. Emil obtained his PhD in Berlin. He was a lover of literature and history and had hoped to become a professor. As jobs were scarce for Jewish scholars in Germany around the turn of the century, he applied to the publishing company of Ullstein Verlag, where he was in charge of several divisions. Among them was the contemporary literature division. He was responsible for the publication of the novel All Quiet on the Western Front in 1929, one of the most significant novels to come out of World War I. With his wife, Gabriela, he raised 4 children in a beautiful home in Berlin. In their home, novelists and musicians came and spoke about literature and performed music. And then Emil lost his job at Ullstein Verlag when the Nuremberg laws required the Aryanization of Jewish-owned businesses. They soon became stateless as the Nazis revoked their citizenship and the citizenship of all Jews and others. As rights continued to erode, Yella traveled to Italy to explore the possibility of earning a living there. In the short time in which she was out of Germany, a law was passed which declared it illegal to return to Germany after having been out of the country. As Yella had unwittingly broken the law, the Gestapo sent her to Moringen, a women's concentration camp, for 6 months. When she was released, the family was required to leave Germany within 2 weeks with 2 of their 4 children. One of their other children went to Shanghai, China, for the war, and the other went to England. With no papers, very little in the way of funds, they packed lightly and began their trek through Europe to escape the increasingly brutal hands of the Nazis. Few countries would give them visas. Cuba was the only one that would permit them entry. In Cuba, they prepared to wait until the United States would issue them a visa. All of them waited, that is, except for their 17-year-old son, Arthur. He, a lover of photography, mailed a letter addressed to Kodak, USA, asking for their advice about how to come to America. Someone on State Street actually wrote back and advised him to come to Mechanics Institute, now RIT, on a student visa, and then try to get work at Kodak. He did just that, and in a few years, his parents and sister were allowed to enter the country. The family settled on Park Avenue, and Arthur, having obtained additional education, became a chemist at Kodak. Meanwhile, Emil and Yella needed to find work. Emil was older and suffered from poor vision. Yella found a job cleaning rooms at Strong Memorial Hospital in Rochester. In Rochester, they made new friends, they enjoyed philharmonic concerts, they availed themselves of libraries. Life, however, was never quite the same. And bringing the family together at Jewish holidays became increasingly important to their happiness. The extended family still gathers from around the world to celebrate, and they are preparing as we speak to celebrate Passover with a brand new adopted baby grandson. Sadly, Yella died of a heart ailment when she was 70. She rests in Mount Hope Cemetery. As part of his grieving process, Emil began to write a series of letters to her during the following year, 1957. The family has permitted us to share some of these letters with you to give you a sense of how the cemetery, our cemetery, felt to him. And Marcia will now read excerpts.
And before I do that, I wanted to, hang on. I wanted to share my screen so that I could show you live on a live website how you would find our Holocaust archive and learn stories about both Emil and Gabriella, as well as other people. Under the cemetery right here, if you slide down to Holocaust archive, you will find each of the people that we have the stories for, their grave sites, their locations, how to find them in the cemetery. And if we come down alphabetically to Hertz, here is Emil Hertz. And if we click on his stone, you will find more about him, even more than what Marjorie just read to you. And you can go back and find other stories as well. So now let me read to you. I'm going to start on March 20th, 1957. 1957 was the year that Yella died, or Gabriella died. March 20th. We stand at your open grave. I had requested at this last farewell that only close family be present. And any difficulties in the arrangement had been taken care of. I had feared for this moment, had believed myself to be torn apart. But I was then overcome by a happy, uplifting thought. Softly I spoke to you. Now are you my Yella, my loveliest and dearest, returning to the earth, deep and secure in your womanly shrine, untouched by the excitement and vicissitudes of life. In your eternal rest, and I hope soon to be by your side. A few months later, excuse me, May 30th, 1957. It was quite different at the site of your grave. I had always hoped in vain to find you there. I called out many times for you, but your grave was silent. No interconnection could be achieved. Everything seemed cold, strange, and distant. Perhaps, I said to myself, it is something about the local cemetery that is to blame. It does not allow for a final detachment for life, complete isolation and seclusion from the world. Again and again, the expected calmness of the location is interrupted by city noises, which, although subdued, are still clearly audible, and which penetrate from the nearby streets, as well as the view of the functional buildings not far away. This is different from what is found in most German, Austrian, and even more so in Italian cities. Their cemeteries are more isolated and undisturbed. Just half a month later, mid-June 1957, Emil writes, I am now slowly getting used to the cemetery here and its surroundings. The burial ground has a wide expanse, and wider still is the range of my thoughts. In my imagination, Jella, we are together in the cemetery in Warburg, also in those of Berlin and Vienna. We are admiring the impressive artistry of many of the grave monuments. Italian art, unlike German art, which often depicts death in terms of murder, has given it the shape of a friend, a mildly smiling consoler and redeemer. For a long time, we had an album with pictures of the most beautiful of these Genoese masterpieces. Do you recall, Jella, the Heine tomb in Paris at the Père Lachaise? We found it so frighteningly cold and sober that we left immediately. We brought bouquets of violets and forget-me-nots at a nearby flower shop, and on your return, we crowned the heavy tombstone with them. I spoke to you of my wish to be buried in Warburg. So many of my ancestors rest there. I wanted to be with them. You were a bit vexed. Wherever you rest, I too want to rest. But does it have to be the remote Warburg? We live in Berlin. We will probably also die there. Do you want to make it so difficult for your children to one day carry their love and memories to our grave? We need to anticipate the future. Your grave is not in Germany. It's in Rochester, and soon mine will be there too. Early August 1957. Desiring to tell you in detail about him, our son Erwin, I often go to your grave. Too often, one of my friends wrongly believes. I feel that even in death, life binds me to you. The thoughts of an afterlife occupy me. And our final reading, September 1957. Rosh Hashanah. On this day, you filled vases with fresh flowers, which are intended to symbolize our internal security and bring joy to our home. I was so used to flowers on a New Year's Day that I bought a large bouquet yesterday to decorate the living room with it. Suddenly, my mood changed. No, these flowers do not fit into my orphaned, empty home. Here they would be sad and dumb. They should be yours to speak to you. I didn't take a moment, hurried to the cemetery and lay the bouquet on your grave. I stammered a lot of words. They had hardly any connection, but they are always words of love, words of thanks for the shine that you spread over my life. Yes, that's the way it should be. Your doing and wanting, your innermost being will not be lost. It will be preserved. You will continue to be within us, continue to work within us, despite all the grief that you faced. And as you have always done, we will return to life, its duties, its hopes, and its indestructible beauty. Through hearing Emil's tender words, you may perhaps have a better sense of why this project compels us. Keeping alive the stories of these individuals, many of whom will soon have no one to bear witness, motivates us to enshrine their memories. We have a beautiful online archive, which I showed you, where the stories can be found. We have raised funds to begin to create a monument and meditation garden along Adlington Road. It's actually Adlington Avenue at the edge of the new Temple Brith Kodesh section. We intend to develop guided walks to visit these graves, and we plan to create curricula that will engage students so that they may be aware of the tragedy of this period and recognize the importance of protecting human rights in the tradition of our earlier heroes like Frederick Douglass and Susan B. Anthony.
Thank you, Marcia. Would you like to return our screen?
I didn't even think there we go.
There you go. Okay.
Done anything. There we go. Sorry about that.
Thank you for such a moving presentation, Marjorie and Marcia, and highlighting the incredible work that you and your committee has done. Indeed, it's very moving, and I'm very proud of our work and your work. Thank you. And now I turn the podium to Pat Corcoran, who will be talking about our future.
A walk through Mount Hope Cemetery. Here is our 2022 vision. As we walk through Mount Hope, we will see visitors off on tours led by purple-shirted tour guides. Trams driven by touring people with walking challenges. Van tours winding through picturesque vistas, carrying senior citizens on special van excursions. Our tour guides leading school children, their teachers, their parents, learning history and exploring the beauty of this majestic place. Local professors conducting their classes at Mount Hope Cemetery, the ultimate classroom. Visitors following our new iPhone tours, learning more about our history and celebrating the people interred at Mount Hope. Children from the nearby Anna Murray Douglas Academy laying flowers at the gravestone of their school's namesake. Commercial buses from faraway places in the US and Canada, dropping off tourists for tours as Rochester becomes a destination city. You'll see our restoration crew busy at work repairing stones and digging foundations. Crews of volunteers will be digging out buried cradle graves. Cradle grave gardeners will be busy tending their flowers and learning about the families buried at their sites. Do we have more cradle graves than any other cemetery in the United States? We think so. Pilgrims will be coming from near and far to meditate at our Holocaust monument and visit the graves of our Holocaust survivors. Mount Hope will be known far and wide as one of the few cemeteries to have a Holocaust project. Groups of volunteers will be working on landscape projects, planting wildflowers, clearing out invasive species. Seniors, college students, families work together to beautify this hallowed ground. Behind the scenes, our volunteers work tirelessly, publicizing, writing, disseminating our research, developing new tours, reaching out to city officials for support and willingness to collaborate. Let's dream of meeting next April 2023 in person for our annual meeting at the Brighton Town Hall with a speaker and a lovely cake. Seeing you all again in person would be such a gift to all of us. This is our vision, this is our hope. All of these aspirations are only possible because of your support and dedication to our work. We thank you. And now to conclude our meeting will be a reading by Monica Gurel.
And so our reading tonight is going to come from a book called The Rediscovery of Hope and Purpose, Awakening the Human Spirit. And it was written by Christopher Albrecht. And he writes, pandemics are rare, so I will safely assume the term social distancing will rarely be used outside of very remote, widespread disease issues. Social distancing simply means this: If illness by chance leaves my body in the form of a sneeze, you are far enough away that the illness will not affect you. On a sunny day in April, I was on a walk with my friend Rich in Mount Hope Cemetery in Rochester, New York. He is a teacher like me. I texted him to see if he wanted to get together amidst a pandemic. We agreed to go for a walk with social distancing. After 3 weeks of being cooped up in my house under government-issued warnings, a walk with a friend produced a joy I had not felt in weeks. No screen or virtual world will ever replace the presence of another person, period. I know it because I felt it. It was Rich's choice to walk in a cemetery during a pandemic. My mind would say, yup, death has been in the news. Let us walk a stretch of beach. I am glad we walked in Mount Hope. This cemetery is a Victorian architectural marvel of hills, ponds, and benches. Susan B. Anthony and Frederick Douglass are buried there. On that day, Rich and I found ourselves staring, mesmerized at one particular stone. We were in a military section of the park, and I was trying to figure out if certain graves were Civil War veterans or if they had fought in the Spanish-American War. Mount Hope Cemetery is dense with headstones. However, in one area, a large stone surrounded by grass stands alone with a simple inscription. The Jewish Poor Lot, dedicated October 1885. The Rochester Jewish community provided for their burial. All are equal before God. May their souls be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. The birth and death years on a headstone are a lot like a product creation and an expiration date. The most important part of the marker is that dash between the two dates. That dash is a person's life. The words on the memorial to the poor Jewish members of the community confirm that equality means everyone. Dignity is not reserved for those of privilege. It is the honor and a duty of those that have had so much to share with those who have less. To share is a choice, but that choice has consequences. Selfishness leads to misery, but charity comes with joy for both the receiver and the giver. Those Jews of 1885 did not have to make a hallowed ground for those with less, but they did. They did not do it before or after the dates on their individual graves, but instead chose to create a space while the dash on their stone was alive. 135 years later, a stone placed by a Jewish community was reminding two men brought up as Christians a valuable lesson. Live your life so when you die, the poor will mourn the loss of a friend.
Thank you, Monica. That was, again, a very moving tribute to what we all celebrate when we walk through Mount Hope Cemetery. And to everyone that participated in today's meeting, thank you. And for all of our registrants, we are going to adjourn the meeting, but I hope you enjoyed our walk through the cemetery, and we look forward to seeing you. And for our presenters, there's a few comments in the chat room saying wonderful things. So I hope you have an opportunity to take a look at them before you sign off. Thank you and good night.